Welcome, everybody. Hello. Thank you for being here with Spirit Matters. Happy Monday to you. If you're not listening on a Monday, happy whatever day it is for you. But we are coming at you live from New York. And it's Monday morning for us. We got our live Zoom studio audience here. And wherever you are tuning in from, I'm really, really glad you chose to tune in today. Thank you. Whether you're a longtime listener or this is your first time, you just happened to search us on a podcast somewhere, a friend told you to check it out. Or sometimes you're just in your car and you turn on your phone and something just starts playing. Everybody have that experience? And you're like, why is YouTube all of a sudden playing from my phone? And things just kind of pop up, and maybe we popped up. But for whatever reason you're here, I'm grateful. Thank you. This is your daily spiritual check-in where we just want to remind ourselves of simple spiritual truths to make sure that we stay on track. I'm trying to learn a new language. I'm trying to learn Hindi, everybody. I'm trying to learn Hindi. I'm not going to embarrass myself by repeating some of the things I'm trying to learn right now. But I just got, I'm taking some lessons with some people online, and I got a new book in the mail, a Hindi learning book. And one of the things is there was this quote. I don't have the book with me. It's in the other room. But it was something about repetition creates patterns. Repetition creates patterns. Repetition create patterns. It was a quote from somebody, and it was using that in the reference of learning the language, that repetition creates patterns. So it's not necessarily like, oh, I know how to say my name is Dayal. Now I can just move on. It's like you use those patterns like again and again and again and again and create those deep grooves in the mind that like become second nature, right? And so when it comes to really wanting to master something and have it go deep in the mind and the consciousness, it's not just, oh, I know that and now I move on, but we want to create deep experiences of realization. And when we're talking about things very deep and spiritual as the nature of the soul and the nature of reality and the nature of our eternal identity and the nature of God and our connection to a higher power beyond ourselves and the modes of nature and the influences and reconfiguring desires, etc. We need regular check-ins. We need regular reminders. We need to create new patterns in the mind. Much of spiritual life is about creating new patterns in the mind. And that's why we're here every day, daily, Monday through Friday. Weekends off. Weekends you splurge, go do whatever you want. You don't have to be spiritual on the weekends. We're not here for you. We just do it 5 days a week, and we trust that you guys will get through the weekend. But that's why we're here. And so thank you for being with us and being part of the revolution of consciousness. It's just me solo here today. We've been having some guests on the show, and we're hoping that maybe our friend Kishore Gopal will be with us this week. He's not able to make it today, but he might join us for a few sessions this week. But one of the things that we were talking about that he brought up that was interesting for me, that was already on my mind, and I was listening to somebody speak about yesterday, was the idea of direct experience and taking responsibility for our spiritual lives is a big one. As if you know me, I've shared a little bit over the years that I had spent a number of years working through the 12 Steps of Al-Anon program, which is like basically a codependency program, specifically for people that grew up or have experiences with other people who are suffering from addiction. And then there's the potential for codependency that can develop, which is I can't be happy unless you fix yourself, right? Anybody ever feel that before? Whether it's with a parent or a friend or a spouse or somebody, anybody, I can't be happy because that person's life is out of control, right? And so we then start to think that my life will come together once somebody else's life changes. And then the fixation becomes trying to control another person. And what happens is that my personal well-being is given into the hands of something which is actually ultimately outside of my control. And we actually start to play God in other people's lives without realizing that the only person, and then that's why a beautiful form of the serenity prayer in those programs in Al-Anon and also ACOA, which is people who grew up in alcoholic homes. The serenity prayer, the standard serenity prayer goes, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. An adapted version of that serenity prayer that they say in programs where you are striving for emotional sobriety is, God, Grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that that one is me. And so you start to develop this understanding that, and I would hear this often in the rooms, which was like very refreshing and profound and like life-changing, is like, I don't need anybody else in my life to change in order for me to be happy. Maybe I might need to change my circumstances or my environment or let people be who they are and change my proximity accordingly. But the idea that I need you, my happiness is in your hands, is a false narrative. And so somebody was speaking about that. They weren't using all these references of adapted serenity prayers, et cetera, but they were talking about the ways, the various types of evidences in spiritual life. There's various types of evidences in spiritual life. And there's this beautiful verse, and there's a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam and also a verse from the Gita that talk about this. There's this one verse from the Bhagavat Purana. I'm going to read it. It's from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a massive canon of Vedic literatures known as the Bhagavat Purana. And there are various huge sections known as cantos. And there's 12 cantos. And in the 11th canto, 28th chapter, verse number 9, there's a conversation that takes place. And there's this beautiful verse that says, by direct perception, pratyakshena, logical deduction, anuman, scriptural testimony. Scriptural testimony means from sacred literatures, which is also sometimes referred to as shabda, which is like a personal testimony, hearing from somebody else, somebody else's there's testimony, and also somebody else's what is it, endorsement, or somebody else sharing something and then you taking their word for it. And personal realization, one should know that this world has a beginning and an end, and so is not the ultimate reality. Thus one should live in this world without attachment. So there's that base spiritual principle, right? That the world is temporary. Krishna says as much in the Bhagavad Gita, that which is real is that which is lasting. That which is temporary is what is called illusion or false, simply by the basis of what is eternal and what will eventually perish or vanquish or disintegrate or be eliminated. That which has a beginning and an end, it's like vapor. It has no real substance. It's like it comes and it goes. It's like a dream, right? It just has no substance in reality. It might come for some time. It might last for what seems to be like a long time. We might even be able to taste it, hold it, touch it, smell it for a period of time. But it actually it's like holding a cup of water in the palms of your hand, and it's just seeping through. It's like a castle made of sand. That just kind of, as Jimi Hendrix says, castles made of sand fall in the sea eventually. It's just like this idea that something is just, it's not permanent, it's not real, and you're trying to hold on to it, right? It's like trying to hug a mirage. It's just not there. It has a beginning and an end. It's temporary. It's not real. And it's not even talking about in the sense of like evil and terrible and bad and horrible and wrong, like all these judgmental terms that we then start to pile onto it. It's just not real. Can't hold on to it forever. The soul is real. Why? Because the soul is eternal, has no beginning and no end. All the identities that you take onto your soul, I'm a successful businesswoman, the Oscars were last night, Jamie Lee Curtis won best supporting actress after a lifetime of acting, and she was like, I won an Oscar, now I'm an Oscar winner, right? That's a beautiful, wonderful, amazing thing. And it's also temporary. That's not your eternal identity, because you weren't one before, and this life will vanish at one point. And hundreds of years from now, thousands of years from now, millions of years from now, which just seems so like, what are you talking about? Millions of years from now, in the scope of eternity, right? In the scope of eternity, it's a very short time. And so what is my real eternal identity, right? So that's the idea of what is eternal, what is real, and what is temporary, and what is false. And so you can experience that. You can understand what I'm saying. There are various ways to understand what I'm saying. One is just through logic, right? You can just use logic to understand and to deduce reality. One is through scriptural testimony, through Vedic literature, right? And the other is through direct perception and realization. And what I want to share is that what I was hearing yesterday when someone was speaking is that the most powerful form of understanding something is through our own direct perception and personal realization. And Krishna says as much in the Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because it's when we have our own personal realization and direct experience, then the power, then the conviction rests in our own hands. To the extent that my faith, my conviction, my determination rests on something outside of myself, that's not necessarily wrong or bad, but it just puts me in a very fragile, vulnerable situation. Because as soon as somebody starts to poke a hole in the logic, or as soon as somebody starts to poke a hole in, or I see something that in a scripture that doesn't quite fit into my material mind, then everything is fragile. But when something comes into my own personal experience, you know what? I've experienced something for myself. I have an experience. I have a realization. I've directly perceived something. Then our conviction becomes very, very, very strong. And Krishna talks about this in the Gita in a very, very, very powerful way. And he talks about the importance of having your own direct experiences in spiritual life. Don't just take my word for it. Don't just take somebody else's word for it. Get in the laboratory and have an experience for yourself. And in the beginning of the 9th chapter of the Gita, verse 2, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 2, Krishna is talking about the nature of all this spiritual knowledge that he explains. He says, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam. Raja Vidya means the king of knowledge, the king of all information. Pavitram idam uttamam, that it's extraordinarily pure and transcendental. He said, why? The same word is used, pratyaksha, because it gives direct perception of the self by realization. And so genuine spiritual knowledge, genuine spiritual practice, Krishna is saying, even in the Bhagavad Gita, my word is enough. Don't take my word for it. I want you to experience something for yourself. And so our spiritual life, yes, there is a sense of, every time we turn on a GPS, every time we open up Google Maps or iMaps, we are relying on someone else's word or testimony that we believe in, right? There's a level of faith that is exercised, right? How do I get to Best Buy? Okay, well, these are the directions, and I take, this is what it tells me to get there. But then I get there and I'm like, oh my God, it closed during the pandemic and they haven't updated it on the app yet. It's false. Now my direct experience and realization overpowers and supersedes what I was being told in the IMAP. And then when somebody asks me, how do you get to Best Buy? I'm just like, I don't go to that Best Buy. It's closed. And then somebody can decide whether they're going to believe me or not. And they can go and they can figure it out themselves, or they can update it on the map or whatever. But at the end of the day, what convinces you more than anything is your own personal experience. You go there and you find out and you see it for yourself. So any spiritual practice, and this is why I think so many people have a tough time with religion. We're just expected to believe things just because. And we're not encouraged to walk our own path and figure things out on our own and use our own level of discernment and move to the place of realization. Move to the place of deep personal conviction where, you know what, like, I own this. I own this feeling. Not like I own this, like I'm the master and I'm better than everybody, but like I own it in the sense that, like, there's a conviction. There's a deep realization in the heart, and I want to cultivate that realization. I want it to grow strong and bigger, and I want to deepen that feeling. And we should always encourage ourselves and encourage others, and we should know that we should be encouraged to seek after your own personal experiences in spiritual life. Okay. Looking at what's going on in here in the chat. Leela Mundry said, 1,000,000 years has already happened, and after this lifetime, 1,000,000 years and more will pass. And this short lifetime has great importance when applied to spiritual life because of the permanent quality it possesses. Unlike all our material endeavors, which are just like supporting endeavors to allow spiritual life. That's a beautiful, beautiful thought and realization. The idea of like, and this is thank you for bringing that up. This is the idea of why in the Gita. Maybe we could talk more about this tomorrow. Now that Kimberly's back, we got our Wrap It Up Acharya back from vacay, and she can help us wrap things up now. And if people have takeaways, you can put your takeaways in the chat. We have a live Zoom. We're doing this live on Zoom, and we got about like a dozen plus people tuning in live on Zoom, and they give us little heart emojis and chats and things like that. And so, you can put our takeaways there, and we'll read them out. But a lot of the ideas like, okay, well, now I'm in spiritual life. Why bother with anything, right? Why bother with my job and my career and my family and taking care of myself and all that stuff? Why? Because I might know something theoretically, but I have not realized it on a level of deep conviction. And so life has been laid out for me. And it's through the traversing of the path in which God has created for you, that he wants to co-create with you, that it's through passing through that eye of the needle that you will gain realization. You're not promised material prosperity. You're not promised that the job is going to work out. You're not promised that the relationship is going to work out. You're not promised that that disease is going to get healed. You're not promised any of those things because we don't control those circumstances. But what you are promised, what is there for us, what is available to us that we'll miss out if we turn and run away, is the conviction and realization of the direct experience of my identity beyond this life. We don't want theoretical knowledge. We want realized knowledge. And you gain that by wrestling with the messiness of life. You figure that out in the relationships of this life and by working through with great sincerity. And so there's a few verses in this regard that I think I'm going to save for tomorrow. Just to make sure we have some fuel left in the tank. But let's go ahead and let's read any more of our takeaways here. Kimberly wants to remind us that she was on a job training, not a vacation. She's on a, quote, job training, as if she has any other important job other than this one. I'm just joking. Okay, that was Leela Mundry. Dana Kay said, great analogy, loves that. Martha, yes. And I would like to share something with you, my dear spiritual family. I don't know if Martha wants me to read that out loud. I was realizing that I'm reading all these comments out loud, and then somebody was like, do they want you reading these out loud? I'm like, they put it in the Zoom chat. So Martha, you let me know. Should I be reading these out loud? Stephanie said, have an ounce of faith and Krishna will meet us where we are at. He will reveal himself to us. It is often in the challenges that we have direct experiences and realizations. Beautifully put. Exactly. It's in the challenges that we have direct experiences and realizations. And I think that the big part of maturity is that when am I just torturing myself for torturing's sake? It's not that like anytime I suffer, it's good for my soul. So let's bring on the suffering. It's not necessarily the reality, but it's that where am I actually having the self-awareness and guidance to know when something is uncomfortable because it's just wrong, or when something's uncomfortable because it's a growth edge. That's a whole other conversation. Jana Vatsala, we can't change people. We change ourselves. Okay, Martha said it's okay. Yes, triple exclamation mark, she wrote. And I would like to share something with you, my dear spiritual family. Last Friday was opening night at a gallery, and I had 3 of my newer paintings there. Martha's a very beautiful, wonderful artist. I have done this before many times, but this time was different. I felt as I did not need to be there, that it was okay for the paintings to be there, but me being there made me somehow uncomfortable, as if I did not belong and as I did not want to hear comments or opinions of what I was showing on those walls. This has brought up many questions to me, and I'm now reviewing and revising and reconsidering what all this is truly telling me. I just wanted to share this. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being aware of yourself and really, I just posted something yesterday, this prayer, this question, that wanting to be aware of what drives me as I take my next steps in life. Because it's not always the next steps I take, but it's the motivation behind those steps that sometimes determine how I feel at the end of the road in front of me. And it's not always about the path I'm walking, but what I'm hoping to get from it, my motivation. And it really, what's driving me is a really, really great question. And we don't ask that often enough. Like, when I enter into a relationship, what's driving me? I want to grow. I want connection. I'm just trying to combat loneliness. What's driving me? Congratulations, Martha. Baldevi wrote, we need to live our life being tolerant and focused on Krishna while working and being among people to display our faith, to support us, and go home. Not go home like go big or go home, but go home like the spiritual world home. So, okay. All right. More comments are here. Let's turn it over to Kimberly. We want to hear Kimberly's voice, and we want to have her wrap some things up for you. So if you're tuning out and just washing the dishes or something, tune in, get out your notepad. Kimberly's going to wrap a few things up for us so that we got some takeaways. What's our takeaways, Kimberly?
All right. We're taking away that repetition creates patterns. What has a beginning and an end is like vapor. Don't give over your well-being to someone else. Put yourself through the experiment, because the strongest conviction comes through our own direct perception. Thanks, Daya.
Thank you. What was the one about vapor?
What has a beginning and an end is like vapor.
Vapor.
It dissipates.
It totally just dissipates. I'm just chasing vapor. Will o' the wisp. Right? What's that word? Will o' the wisp. All right, guys. I love you all tremendously. I'm really, really glad you're here. That's all our time for today. We try to keep it short and sweet. If it's your first time tuning in, please join us again. We love you and we're glad that you're here. If you tune in regularly, thank you so much. Please do us a big favor and go rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you tune in, and wherever you don't tune in. Please let us know. And I got a special announcement this week. Last day offer. We've had some beautiful Ayurveda offerings at the Bhakti Center. Spring is in the air here in the East Coast. And wherever you are, we have some online Ayurveda cleanse and foundation of Ayurveda trainings. Ayurveda cleanse is a great way to just kind of like reset your body as the new season kind of comes into gear. My wife is going to be leading that cleanse. And so you can go check it out online. It's a guided week-long guidance. It's online. And so she'll like have some sessions with you and then coach you throughout the week. Recipes that you'll get, ideas about how to do a proper cleanse. I think it's a khichdi cleanse. So you'll have khichdi recipes and then eating khichdi every day, which is like a very easily digestible, nutritious, wholesome meal that just kind of like cleansing in Ayurveda is not just about like starving yourself and fasting, but it's about eating easily digestible foods. So your body's continuing to get the nutrients it needs, but at the same time, creating space to kind of clean out the pipes internally. So please go check that out. bhakticenter.org. It's probably right there on the homepage. Ayurveda Spring Cleanse. Check it out. But today might be one of the last days to register if you're listening on a Monday, because you need a critical mass to make it happen. And so if you're thinking about joining, you haven't joined yet, go sign up. Check it out today. That's and have a direct experience of health and well-being. Okay, guys, love you all so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.